Hey, what up guys, welcome back to the fish room. Today's video is going to be about how to keep fish tanks if you've never done it ever before. I see a lot of people do videos on fish tanks, but they never really cover how to do it for a first time beginner. So I'm going to make a really easy video for you guys to follow. I'm not going to talk about any of the science behind fish keeping. I'm literally just going to show you how to keep fish tanks if you've never done it. So to start off, I would recommend getting a fish tank that's 5 to 10 gallons for your first fish tank. If you go to Petco, they have sales all the time. You can get a 10 gallon for 20 bucks. You can get a 5 gallon for around the same price. I would definitely recommend getting a 5 to 10 and nothing bigger for your first tank. Now, a lot of people say go on Facebook Marketplace and all this, but honestly, with the sales at Petco, you're getting a brand new tank for cheaper than what people are selling them online. Alright, so the first thing I'm going to go over is the things you need after you have the fish tank itself. I'd recommend getting some gravel for it, and you're going to need a filter. There's a bunch of different types of filters, and there's many different versions of each filter, so I'm going to show you guys a couple filters in the fish room. A lot of my tanks have hang on the backs right now, so let's just say you're going to get a hang on the back filter for a 10 gallon tank. This tank right here has a Whisper 10, which is just a 10 gallon filter. Alright, so we got the filter. The next thing we're going to need is a heater. I would recommend reading the packages really carefully because they tell you the wattage and they tell you what gallons they're for. So just make sure you read the package and get one for a 10 gallon or a 5 gallon or whatever tank you have. After we get the heater, we're going to need water conditioner. All this stuff does basically is removes the chlorine from the water. So I've always just used API and I've had really good luck with it. So I definitely recommend API for you guys. So at this point, I would definitely recommend getting a hose and some sort of bucket, or I use a pitcher in my fish room, but those are just for doing water changes. So every once in a while you're going to want to change out the water in your fish tank, so you'll use the hose to suck out the water and you'll have a bucket just to catch the water and go dump it out. Now the very last thing we're going to need is some fish food. I just use Tetra Flakes. They've always worked pretty good for me, so I definitely recommend them. Alright, so we got a filter, we got a heater, we got some gravel for the fish tank, we got water conditioner, a bucket, a hose, and fish food. Now, I've run my fish room for over 10 years with these simple items, and I think it's all you really need to run a fish room or just start up a fish tank. So once we have all those items and we get home, now we need to fill the tank up with water. So the first thing you're going to do is pour in some of that API. There's directions on the bottle. It'll tell you how much to pour in for 10 gallons. And if you have a 5 gallon, you can just half that amount. I would recommend getting a thermometer of some sort. I usually just use a meat thermometer. You can get it at the dollar store. They work pretty good. Now you can go over to the sink or you can go to your bathroom. I usually just use the bathroom faucet and fill up your water and just make sure it's around 75 to 80 degrees. From there, I just take the water over to my fish tank and I would dump it in and just get your tank nice and filled up. And then I would let it run with the filter and heater plugged in for at least a week before you get fish. So let's say it's time to go get fish for the tank finally. It's been a week, you've let it sit, you've let it settle, it's finally going. So let's say we go to the pet store. I would recommend just getting a couple fish for your first time. Literally just 3 or 4 fish, if that. Just a couple fish. If you look in this tank, I have just a few fish because I just set up this tank. It's very important to slowly add fish over time and let your bio load build up. Since this is the first fish you're adding, just add a couple fish and let a couple weeks go by. You're also going to need a net for your fish room, so make sure you pick up a net. They're pretty cheap. You can get one for like $4 at any Petco or anywhere. Okay, so let's say you just got home from the pet store. First thing I'm going to do is take the fish in the bag and just float the bag in your fish tank for about 10 to 15 minutes. You just want your fish to get used to the temperature, and then take the bag out of the fish tank once it's done, and we're going to open the bag and take a bucket and a fish net. And I usually just place the net over the bucket and pour the water into the net so that the fish get caught in the net and the water goes in the bucket. We don't want that water to mix with our fish tank water. So I'm just going to take the fish in the net and put them directly in the tank. So talking about feeding them, I think we should go over that next. I usually recommend not feeding them on the first day or the second day you get your fish. They'll be just fine if you don't feed them for the first 2 days. And then on the third day, I recommend giving them just a tiny bit of food. I'm going to show you guys here. I barely feed my fish a little pinch of food. So this on my fingers, all you really need is this little pinch of food. So I'm going to show you guys, I'm going to put it in this tank over here, and you can watch the fish eat. Your fish should usually eat all the food within a couple minutes. If they're not eating all the food, you know you're putting way too much. The last tip I wanted to give you guys is about water changes. I honestly think they're really important when you first set up a tank to stay on top of them every week. you need to do at least 25% of your fish tank. So this tank here, I do about 25% a week if I just set it up. Once your tank gets established and set up, you don't have to water change as much, but at the beginning, it's definitely necessary to keep fresh water in when your bacteria is not really going yet. So I definitely recommend water changing every week. As I shown you guys before, we got the bucket and the tube. So all you do is put the tube in your fish tank, and you're gonna suck on the other end and just let it drain out into your bucket. Just be careful not to suck up any fish, they will just go right into the tube. Then just make sure you're always adding water conditioner to remove the chlorine. And then go ahead and get 75-degree water and add it right back to your fish tank. And that's all you do for a water change. So this has been my little tutorial on how to start a fish tank if you've never ever had one before. I told you everything to buy, I told you where to buy it, so make sure you guys leave a like and comment down below if you want to see any more tutorials and stuff like this. I make all kind of videos on my fish room and all my fish tanks, so make sure you guys check out my other videos. Thanks for watching.